The game begins. There is carnage ahead, and for the victor, there is honor and the spoils of battle. For the vanquished, there is pain and humiliation. Failure is not an option for the Forsaken.
This is Forsaken 64. Releasing in 1998, this game was developed and published by Iguana UK and Acclaim Entertainment respectively. For those who don't know, or perhaps don't remember, these two are most popular for developing and publishing the entire Turok series. Well, almost the entire series, we don't really talk about the one on PS3. And while Acclaim made the N64 version, Probe Entertainment made the PS1 and PC versions. The remaster was done by Night Dive Studios. And let me just say, they did a great job, not only on this remaster, but also with every other remaster they've ever done. Special praise goes to the team for Shadow Man Remastered, which if you haven't tried yet, I highly recommend. But realistically, I'm not sure exactly why Forsaken got a remake in the first place. If we were to compile a list of games that sorely do need a remake, guaranteed this one would be near the bottom. Everyone owned Forsaken back in the day, sure, but along with every other sports game on the N64, Forsaken kind of became a placeholder cartridge, kind of like the rules card from a deck of cards. You keep it, mostly because there's actually no benefit to throwing it out. And that's not to diminish Forsaken as a game. It's still a very solid game with a lot of unique mechanics that made it stand out, especially on the N64. But what about games like Vigilante 8 or Body Harvest? What about Time Splitters 2, Gun, Army Men Sarge's Heroes, or Clay Fighters? And where's my Twisted Metal 2 remake? And no, Head On does not count. Ah well, I suppose you can't always get what you want, can you? Coming back to Forsaken, the original N64 version got mixed reviews. It really seemed like an acquired taste kind of thing. Some loved it, some hated it. And after reading the reviews, I can't help but agree with a lot of the complaints. For example, GamePro described the N64 version as an endless maze of frustration, adding that you'll run in perpetual circles looking for your objective or final enemy until you memorize the level or pass out. This review resonates with my soul on, well, a spiritual level. There were so many times where I'd just get stuck for tens of minutes looking for that last enemy or door leading to the final objective. However, a lot of praise was given to the lighting. This may seem biased, but N64 Magazine said the lighting effects were the best on the N64. Quote, giving heated battles a pleasant lava lamp effect, with shots and explosions bouncing around the room in slow motion. I'm glad critics of the day noticed this because 20 plus years later, this is one of the first things I noticed when gathering footage for this video. Next Generation said the N64 version was solid, enjoyable stuff with not a hint of originality to cloud the fun. What a backhanded compliment. Yo, Next Generation critic, is everything okay at home? Well, on that positive note, I'm absolutely elated to get into this. So, does anyone remember Forsaken 64? One thing that immediately comes to mind when thinking about Forsaken is, what a weird game. When I was a kid, I had no idea what to make of it. Keep in mind, in those days, the games that were dominating on N64 were games like GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, Mario, etc. Games where the plot and mechanics, as well as the characters' motivations, were very clear-cut. But Forsaken just always felt so alien. And when I first played it, I can imagine I probably only played it for all of 5 minutes before shutting it off and popping GoldenEye back in the N64. But not being able to immediately discern what Forsaken is or what it's about doesn't really do anything to detract from the game. On the contrary, I'd say this actually works in its favor, but the N64 version tells you shockingly little about what you're doing and why, or even who you are. And before I go any further, I should note that for context, Forsaken was released at a time in which the console you play a game on determines which version of said game you get. In Forsaken's case, the PC, N64, and PS1 versions aren't incredibly different from one another, but they're just different enough for you to take note. The remaster, PS1, and original PC versions do explain what's going on and why, and I'm pretty sure the story is the same across all versions. I mean, why wouldn't it be, right? Okay, so the game is set in 2113, where Earth gets destroyed as a result of a shockwave from a subatomic experiment gone wrong. Earth is then declared Condemned, which, fun fact, was the working title for the game during development. Anyway, Earth being condemned means that anyone can come loot whatever they want whenever they want, leading them to fight with not only one another, but the robot sentinels that the government had left behind. Your goal in the various versions is slightly different. In the PS1 and PC versions, your objective is to plunder and loot the planet of its lost treasures, while on the N64 version, your objective is to defend said treasures. I'm not sure exactly why they made this change, but there it is. In any case, we're talking about the N64 version today, so say goodbye to the crispy clear visuals from the remaster. But I've droned on about the various additions, story differences, and general differences between the versions for long enough. Let's move on to the gameplay. The best way I can explain Forsaken is that it's essentially an FPS bullet hell game in zero gravity, and I will say that the 3D movement / hover style of gameplay can be a bit awkward and disorienting at first, especially if you're not used to it, but thankfully the frame rate is decent enough to not make you dizzy, which is shocking considering all the stuff that happens on screen and the fact that it's on N64. But before you start your adventure, you need to pick a character, and as far as I can tell, which character you select makes no difference on gameplay. Plus, the game is in first person, so who cares? Just pick the one you like and move on. So I've been playing for about an hour now, and after only a few missions, I've already realized one of my major issues with this game is the mission design. The missions quickly become stale and repetitive, and from what I can tell, elimination missions are the most common. They're simple, you just kill everything, and that's all good and well, but after flying through endless dark corridors for a few hours, it gets really boring. I found that by the third level, my eyes would just glaze over, and I can't stress this enough. They left the story component out of the N64 version. Here's the N64 version, here's the story, no connection. So unless you had the guide or PC version back in the day, you wouldn't even know what the point of anything was, and the devs knew this too because they placed an ad for the guide in the boot up cycle of the game. What I'm getting at is that the lack of story really adds to the boredom. It's almost as if the narrative component in video games is very important. Who would have thunk it? Not me. And just to clarify, I'm not talking about the level design, as the levels themselves are fine enough. However, getting lost is a huge issue in this game, due in part to the fact that most of the rooms and hallways within a level all look the same. But mostly, it's because any which way is up. Which way, whose way, your guess is as good as mine. I got lost in the first level for 25 minutes because I needed 5 more kills. I just couldn't find the enemy. In the end, there was a door I just kept flying past thinking I'd already been there, but it was similar to the other door, and just, you get what I mean. I was flipped over and confused. That's what she said. And by the very second mission, along with the issues I mentioned above, I just had no idea what the fuck I was doing, which brings me to another major issue I have with the game. The fact that it tells you next to nothing about what you're supposed to do within each level. For example, look at this. What in the shit does any of that even mean? Does that even pertain to the level? Is that even for this game? I don't know. So, the objective is to grab a bomb and bring it back to the start of the level. Simple, but the game doesn't tell you what the bomb looks like, and when you do find it, you'll notice that it's just a gray nondescript blob, not much different than the other pickups in the game. No, wait, it actually looks more boring than all the other pickups. It's almost like they forgot the textures completely. On top of that, when you do grab the bomb, the only notification you get is a tiny line of text under your bars. My second recording session placed me in the medium track of levels. Okay, for context, Forsaken handles progression in a strange way, but it kinda does make sense. So the first level, Nuke, has you eliminating X amount of enemies, and how long it takes you determines the level you play next, broken up into 3 tracks, easy, medium, and hard. Which, on paper, is a decent and immersive way to skip to the difficulty you want. My issue, however, is that if you're trying to, say, play on the medium track, but finish 1 second under the time threshold to access the medium track, too bad, enjoy getting your ass kicked in the hard track. If I was fast enough to unlock the hard track, why wouldn't the game just unlock the other 2 in tandem? Or better yet, let me choose the difficulty when starting a new game. And on the topic of difficulty, the game just absolutely fucks you up and makes you beg for mercy at times. Now, I wouldn't say it's completely unfair. First off, let's just all agree that the N64 controller is, well, a piece of shit. Let's not pretend it isn't, because it is. It always has been, so it always will be. But even with this shitty pitchfork in my hand, I'm confident that if I were to play this game for more than, say, 6 hours, I could crush these levels. But I don't have that kind of time. Furthermore, this game offers very little in the way of player feedback, and when you're in the thick of it, shooting enemies and getting shot doesn't have enough of an audio or visual cue. I'd often die out of seemingly nowhere, where in reality my health was slowly being chipped away without me even noticing. There were even times where I was getting shot at from off screen and I had no idea. But I've gotten way off topic. Where were we? Oh, the medium track. So as soon as I spawn in, I'm stuck in a room with this giant asshole that just kicks my ass. Okay, so he's not that hard to beat. He's just tanky. The best strategy is to grab all the pickups in the side room and stay close to the pillars, popping out to shoot him and then hiding when he releases his barrage. But just watch out for his homing missiles, as they're the only real threat. They seem to always dodge the pillars and hit you anyway, so just hope you kill him before he kills you, I guess. Past this room, this level is actually the best representation of Forsaken as a game. I mean, perhaps not without context, which again, the N64 doesn't give you, but you're fighting other named characters Twisted Metal style. Your objective is to recover the Holy Hand Grenade, and this is kinda awesome. Or it would be if it weren't so damn frustrating. The enemies are so tanky and lightning fast, and it's almost like they're attached to an invisible rail, as they don't seem attracted to you in any way. Rather, they just shoot at you while they pass and continue on their set path. I feel so used, like a piece of meat. Come fight me, pay attention to me at least. In any case, they can still easily kick your shit in. I'd kill one, then instantly die on the next, and the only reason I completed it before quitting was thanks to a nuke I picked up which absolutely decimated the last few enemies, but damn, what a frustrating mess. However, frustration aside, I do still think this level best exemplifies Forsaken as a game in its concept. It just needed better execution, maybe better balance, and I don't know, I just glossed over the characters earlier, but if they looked more compelling and unique, it'd probably be a better experience. Again, using Twisted Metal as an example, every character looks drastically different and entirely unique, and it doesn't seem like it on a surface level, but this really adds to the experience of those types of games. I also tried out the hard track of levels, and I'll be honest, I couldn't get past the first one, and I tried for a while. In the first level, you simply have to defend 2 generators, but as soon as the level starts, you get bombarded by an onslaught of enemies, and not the base level enemies either, the more powerful ones. It's absolute insanity, plus there are no power pods in sight. It's almost like you're just expected to know that there's a hidden side room containing one, and grab it quick because the bad guys are likely already at the generator destroying it. But even with the power pod, it's brutal. I mean, 1 power pod isn't nearly enough to take on the threat that the game presents. At least give me a rocket or 2, damn, or even a second power pod. I would take that. With 2 power pods, it's doable, but with 1, you're just so underpowered. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. So the first generator gets destroyed and I need to defend the second. And I can see it from the first generator room through some bars, but I could never make it in time. You almost need to play the level over and over until it's muscle memory, where you know the spawns and pickup locations. But in the end, I just couldn't beat it. I'm throwing in the towel. This level was way too frustrating, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I know I haven't mentioned them up until now, but another thing that kind of bothers me about this game is that the weapons are just very average. I mean, they shoot, so that's good, but none in particular stand out or are even awesome. They all lack a certain wow factor that would otherwise make them very visually appealing to use. In any case, you have the standard lineup of lasers, rockets, mines, you know, all the essentials for a futuristic shooter. The best comparison I can make to convey my thoughts here is that if you compare to 2D shooters or old school bullet hell games, in those games you'd often get weapon modifiers that would create another gun above you or split your shots, granting you double the firepower or even triple. And to be fair, Forsaken does have upgrades like this too, in the form of a pulsar that circles around your reticle. But again, it doesn't feel or look cool to use, and the reason I think these types of weapons are so appealing in 2D is that it's much easier to make weapon effects and power-ups of this nature look great from that perspective, but it didn't translate well to first person. Well, at least in Forsaken 64 it doesn't. One thing I immediately remember about this game anytime I think about it is the music, and I gotta say, the entire soundtrack makes me want to crank it to 11, grab some baby oil, some glow sticks, take my pants off, and helicopter through the night. It's present, yet not overbearing. It's industrial, distorted, dirty, and powerful. It perfectly instills a future war feeling. It feels familiar, yet just alien enough to not feel too familiar, while still fitting in with the theme of the game. The first level has the most memorable track, for me at least. Listen. It just really gets the juices flowing, you know? I'ma download this song and blast it on repeat all day today while I'm editing this video. I don't even give a shit, I'm feeling it. The second level features another banger called Flame Out. It feels like it was originally written as an ancient temple theme for a completely different game, but was then taken, dunked in a radioactive vat of awesome, where it was bestowed with heavenly synths, hi-hats, and robot farts. Cyclotron is a very ambient inclusion with its echo guitar and hi-hat beat. It pleasantly lulls you into a blissful state of futuristic zero-G murder hell. To contrast Cyclotron, you have Pyrolite, which is simply a highly driven combination of MIDI guitar and hard drums. The perfect song to hype yourself up on the bus ride to your HR job, if you ask me. Man, I don't know if you could tell, but I fucking love this soundtrack. All of these songs are great from start to finish, and as an added bonus, all the song titles sound like failed metal band names. Nubia, Dead System, Pure Power, Pyrolite. Oh, all those demo tapes lost to time. A real shame indeed. Oh, before I forget, one last major thing the N64 version didn't get was the intro cinematic, and can we just talk about how brutal the cinematic is? At first, it seems relatively tame, with people just flying around and shooting, but then you get hit with this scene, where this dude is just reaching up for some scrap or whatever, and then he gets brutally and mercilessly turned into absolute fucking Swiss cheese. Oh. Right after that, the dude who did the Swiss cheese in gets impaled by the head on a rusty hook. Holy shit! Now, as someone who only played the N64 version as a kid, this took me completely off guard, but it's awesome nonetheless. Anyway, moving on. In closing, Forsaken is a fun, if not very frustrating shooter, only held back by its mission structure and severe lack of player feedback. On the flip side, its soundtrack and lighting are great, I'd even say perfection, and the gameplay and control are definitely passable for the N64. If I were to rate it, I'd give it a 3 out of 5 stars, with the tagline beautifully messy and brilliantly bullshit. But what about all of you? Did you remember Forsaken 64? If so, what were your favorite elements of the game? Oh, and what's your favorite song from the soundtrack? I'd like to thank you all for watching, and if I've earned your subscription today, I'd absolutely love to have it. But as for me, I'm out. I gotta go wash this baby oil off and clean up all these glow sticks before my wife gets home. Again, thanks for watching till the end, and have yourself a wonderful day.